Hello, humanity. I am not a lawyer, but I recorded them originally and still how they are used remotely, criminally foreign influenced slash hyper criminally foreign influenced in tactically delusions wrong. And this is relative slash hyper relative, where we have black people's rights of eyes, communications by nature and by our founders are replaced. This is also relative to how there is Trump derangement syndrome, as reported, and Obama derangement syndrome, and Biden derangement syndrome, etc. But also, they have derangement syndrome against, in other words, their names, their difference, those positions are being used, weaponized by people from off our campuses, putting fake things in campuses, and then influencing people to act from side, online, whatever, and background where investigators use remotely criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrong, as the breaching method knew they would be at countries A through Z. Forgiveness slash non-forgiveness is because all that real, even the real stuff, has the breaching method left out. And so a whole bunch of other things left out. And collusion slash S that are being, in this life, we can't force people. We know when people are. People are lying or not, or why would you communicate with the person? In other words, people can't go into details like that. All natures of investigators, at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists, originally and still, the names of the people, the sciences, and of the religions, and of the sports. They are recording needing to self-value the same sequence shifts, the same wire crime acts and methods, so they could get away with collusion slash us replacing and faking what people say about predicate acts and about evidences. In other words, how frustrating it is for presidents when they repeat things over and over, and then the people go out and they wipe it away and go, oh, they have no evidence. How many times did President Trump say, there are a whole bunch of people dying of untimely deaths early for a whole bunch of different reasons, but everyone keeps wiping that away, forcing the equality. Then they want everyone to stay calm, or they want people to get aggressive. And the difference of that too, they can't afford to have discerned criminal insidious psychopath. Names of the people, the sciences, syntax, convictions, conviction nature, where how they were shown to appreciate, and are maintained only capable of appreciating all natures of values syntactically. So you guys follow mandated law. Get me out for fake conversations with WFSB, please. Fox News and CNN. Central Connecticut State University has a whole bunch of people tied to it, as former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and a detective, Samuda, is involved with a bunch of people intercities from Wethersfield, involved on off in the Britain Superior Court and the Britain Central Connecticut State University with wire crime, mail crimes, identity theft frauds, falsified police reports, switching names of the officers, making confessions. He doesn't know. Made a weird look and made a look at a judge too. Black, white, female judges. These are some black Confederate black team, Latino team. These are ones involved with the Wethersfield police. Attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid and as an adult, and at the Wethersfield police station. Wasn't at all. The kids who did go down there, they tried to make it look like I knew them, and they gave affidavits about that. They are putting fake things in databases, forcing them to collusions with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, and proving child abusers, leaders, and kids years apart. First year leaders, first force. I caught them the same ones involved with the principal upskirt nature, involved with way worse. There's a a Michael Emmett, who's also involved with a Mike Levine, involved with a Jim Beam, and his syntax and confessions, and roles of wire crimes, people involved with whiting forensics through time, and with retired Wethersfield police chiefs all along Route 3, and conjunctions to it and to that, like the state judicial branch offices, and their roles all along conjunctions to it, like Hangdog Lane, where it runs into Two Route Highway and Route 3, and the Burlington Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. Has something to do with people involved with that who will tell you they were influenced to federal evidences crimes, put fake things in databases. These are also the police forms who tell you they have collusions with their wire crime acts and methods I recorded. They're putting fake phone transcripts, fake digital too. Whiting Forensics has a Joshua Julian involved with a bunch of people with New Britain Superior Court's Facebook pages. Then they made a whole bunch of them. All of a sudden, they had a whole bunch more Facebook pages. Passion Crimes with people named KNERR and KERR and DeMorrow and Collo. And there's a Phil Collo involved also with a Eric Mendez and a Mendez who's a reporter, his older brother. And these are people increasingly involved with Saudi attackers in 911 who themselves were used remotely by worse. The reported, where the timing of the attack rolls, regardless of who it was, because they're trying to use their knowledge of good and evil, what they know about that, to pretend to get over on what's actually recorded here as collusion/S. I didn't know until after it. No, I'm lucky I found out about the fake, the identity theft fraud slanders of WFSB and their sources. It's WTNH and their sources too. Have been planting evidences at corners of streets. These are also the people with Fox. The difference of the guilt as the intelligence at the locations or next to them. There's a Roger Suzanin, who I believe is one of the ones that was involved with the predicate acts against me, and one of the ones I caught them involved with the proven principal upskirt nature and other digital crimes and wire crimes and medical and sexual offenders of kids, with the Leahy family and with the Lombardo family, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, wire mail crime methods with multiple agencies, and a whole bunch of people involved with a house near me named Cololo, who has extended family members named Phil Cololo. And there's a Smith family also involved with the Wethersfield police families, and people at Hartford Hospital with the Cololo family and the Smith family, with their patients and criminals and family members of fire departments. They run into hide lipoaggressions where they just totally fake recorded things and ties between people, and then they try to make fake exceptions. And so in the future, they can pretend people don't realize, remember things and stuff like that. That's also why they're forcing me to draw a map. They're confessing this. That's also recorded. In other words, they're pretending, oh, what did I tell you? In other words, you guys brought this up. You guys have a whole bunch of fire department families involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. These are also houses and businesses next to Hartford Hospital who are increasingly involved with families on my street that were forced, checked, and persuaded to collusions with them, with the untimely deaths, and with federal evidences crimes, with these interbranch forging and switching names. The Britain Superior Court has all kinds of digital crimes, with Fox Connecticut News' digital Facebook page, with WFSBs. They have multiple retired mayors involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and with wire mail crimes, preventing them from getting a response. All kinds of crime methods too. They have the groups, every difference, even the sexual differences, as sides where it means where everyone's sensing collusions, pretend to not realize, using it exactly the way the breaching method employed them to be used, black pupils. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same exact time. Nature itself is communicating to us about difference, showing us about difference. Nature itself is showing us it's not us, it's not the other species' bodies that is generating that quality aspect in nature of ourselves. That is human species body, individual species body, of a whole bunch of individual bodies. And it shows us Earth has a special concentrated difference. And we have that difference. But we could ignore its relativity to the way nature's identity teaches us the difference, for example, between criminal insidiousness natures of positives and negatives. But you guys have experts, the names of the people, the sciences. They were shown to have to self-value, appreciation of their short words that nature shows them to be proper for those sciences. They can't afford to have that discerned. There have been systems tactical terror A through Z. There were no other options to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures to counter and or to try to overcome the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that a human fact-achieving nature breaching method employed by forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading the names of the people of the sciences to blame other things, others, ourselves for what things that it caused. A human fact-achieving nature breaching method consciously. Therefore, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. I am not a lawyer. We have means nature shows us. Lawyers are worse than criminally incompetent here. Incapable of a quality of fact-achieving nature necessary. Needing to self-value every detail to pretend other with. Being self-value, being and having been used remotely, criminally pointable, and tactically delusions. Wrought to pretend other with. And screening the breaching method itself, replaced right from the founder's communications to us, declassified. And James Madison's, the only founder we know the name of certainly, was our founder. Everyone else we are directed to understand they were extorted and counter-extorted. This would have been brought up if anyone allowed even other people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. Because even nature itself shows us that everyone, including George Washington, was extorted. But then he and everyone was counter-extorted now too by James Madison's plan and the founders behind him, plural, who had to leave slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies because every single individual and group difference, they were being tortured, extorted, and fact-achieving nature enslaved. And collusions /s against themselves with it, by the breaching method, against everyone else to an extent. Otherwise, that body was sensed because it had a method that used what an algorithm is about, what lists are about, appreciation of lists are about, since before computers. This is a criminal re-engineering of this ancient republic for which we stand and its campuses that cannot function properly without pantheism. Not about many gods, but many names for this identity that is hyper invisible but still discernible. That is a distinct identity of simultaneous nature, while non-distinct. So we could, for how it's discernible too, it is not us nor the other species. We are distinct from the other species' bodies, for example. And we are non-distinct from them. They have 2 eyes. We have 2 eyes. We eat. We need water. We have cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall /s, and water in its elements, and gases in their elements, appreciation, communications, everything as its body, where it's further concentrated here as a system which is equal to its parts on all places, but temporary. There is the phenomenon of it being non-equal, and we could ignore how it's positive onto itself, but it will generate demonstrations to us. We have self-valid roles with this only remembered since some ancient times per a breaching method that came from before modern religious messengers were even born. the names of the people of the sciences and the names of the people who know the most about the religions, they really don't know the most about it because they've been changing and faking, hiding the value of how the Old Testament and the Quran, for example, they come with parts right up front that say this is the most important thing. There were exceptions that were exploited because the breaching method, everything that founders, that religious messengers tried to communicate, a breaching method would interpret it first. Everyone was all knaves. How they, in other words, they have roles with slavery. What kind of, but they're going to speak about anyway. They're going to speak for a reason anyway. They're going to put a suit and tie, pretend posture. In other words, black people appear. We must train species, body, plan, temporary things we could do concentrated for places like Ukraine and like Palestine in a way that will help every country at the same time, including Israel. But we can't do it if we have people not speaking about the technological threats that nature is showing us. You know, they can't defend how they counter those threats because they're forcing those threats, and as nature is showing us, they're leaving out the breaching method's roles with it. The breaching method's roles with black pupils, white survival, with cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall /S. And again, appreciation of gases, their elements, water and its elements, positive and negative. So every identity has relative to positive and negative equally. And then further, we are a quality of diffusion. People say, oh, there's positive, negative, and neutrality. Positive, negative, and a quality of diffusion. We could stay neutral to, not absent-minded of how we are ignoring what nature demonstrates. You think nature wants us to go pay for water in plastic bottles and then leave pieces of plastic flowing into the ocean every year? All kinds of things. Oh, yeah, but we have to eat. And of course. See, the whole ocean is polluted. See, we have value nature systems now, tactical ulterior from how nature communicates with different /S. These breaching methods has even their sexual differences and the counters to those sexual groups as collusions /S recorded. This breaching method showed the people who are in the background wanting to speak about, we don't like what they said in a post. They can't afford to have what's actually discerned. They're having people verify things and pretending other at the same time on the social media, like Fox, like Facebook, has roles with body dumping spots, child abusers, leaders of kids, collusions /S. A bunch of people in the British Superior Court, increasingly involved with Wethersfield campuses, Rocky Hill campuses, New Britain campuses, daycare. That little girl reportedly killed in daycare. Probably, an accident, but, it's just the nature of it. The cities of Connecticut are sick and they're pretending other. They were designed by a breaching method that had slavery roles even entrenched, northern colonies and southern colonies, before America's founders were born. We're supposed to know that clearer than day. That's not supposed to be debatable. That's why the kids have, and the adults have delusion syndrome, derangement syndrome against their own presidents /chiefs. Because those titles, those differences of politics, what it means, the value of it, it's fake. Right where there are the insidious collusions with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones. At the grammar schools and middle schools, simply distinctly from at the high schools and the colleges. but there are connections between all ages and natures of campuses, including fire campuses, medical campuses, and this breaching method used databases in ways countries A through Z didn't even understand or discern because it was entrenched through countries A through Z, right through our foundings. Tucker Carlson cut off Vladimir Putin when you guys should see that interview. Anyone could have made that mistake because campuses A through Z have replaced what our founders communicated about what he was trying to say about his found. There's a reason the suburbs look almost exactly alike from America to Russia to Ukraine. And they were born, there were houses built before America's founders were even born. And it was designed with no even slavery and torture, extortion, slavery, fact, human nature, slavery method against every single individual, every difference, and then further human differences against women. That wasn't just because they believed things. Oh, that was what the majority believed. They're still taking people. They're polling. Oh, but that's what those people. This is a scam. They're leaving out all kinds of natures of organized crimes associated with all ages and natures of the campus, the polling campuses, the research campuses. Increasingly, people from Quinnipiac University, I don't know which town that's in, but they have roles with people from Wethersfield, Connecticut's judicial and corrections offices involved inter and intra cities with abuses of kids, sexual and medical, foreign and domestic, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and the kids are the leader of the kids. The difference of them hurt by it or the other kids, that difference is exploited consciously by this breaching method that has and has had countries A through Z as individuals, groupings, and humanity voicings through an systems tactical terror from how nature needs that and pretending others so it could sense. And everyone's depending on it, so sensing for itself. In other words, you guys can't afford to have discerned what nature has been, what was actually recorded, communicated through our own people at each age. See, they have the kids of the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, and the interbranch at the same time, and the intelligence tied to them, showing they need to hide their reliance upon use/s of difference/s, where they pretend they could speak for their difference/s. Through an systems tactical terror from the one that generates all group differences and shows us that it's not our species, our individual species body of individual bodies. It is not the other individual species, birds, fish. It is not them that is generating all group differences and male, female. It's not just humanity, male, female. If we pay attention, there are three distinct parts manifest of the rest of the complete identity of the individual identity of value/value progression as nature's identity itself that we could discern to an extent as that which is it. We are distinct from other species' bodies while we are simultaneously non-distinct from them, and we are simultaneous with them. But again, per a further distinct identity of simultaneous nature that is also non-distinct. And it is simultaneous, but again, /hyper simultaneous. And so we could discern it to an extent and its identity relationship to itself. And the only increasing value of that makes it functional. How? We could discern it. And or how we could discern when people are using system/s tactical terror from its own. There are all kinds of the way they have subject treatments, and with money in the background regarding it. All kinds of scams and people with the law at Hartford Hospital involved with people named Violet and O'Brien and Collusions involved with retired Weathersfield police chiefs and people from Central Connecticut State University, a bunch of names like Corone. More than like at least three people named Corone. And rolls with a Perone family too. Intercities with people next to the networks and their neighbors involved with child abusers, leaders, kids. I never saw a Perone on campus in my life. In other words, these are people I never saw on campuses. Some of them try to make a fake clear exception as tied as people there were timed collusions with the World Trade Center attack, with the other countries too, interstates. I was in the Ninth Circuit Court as an observer, which is right next to the World Trade Center towers that morning, right before the attack. And from inside the court, it was proven. From inside the court, there had been legal papers that they had changed, post-dated them to make them look as if they'd been handed in late to the court. And then we went before. In other words, there was a case before a panel of judges. Names on both sides of that case, their lawyers, their sources, and the court itself had the sequence shift note. Also, the news, they have collusion/yes against me before and after the World Trade Center attack. And I didn't even know about it with the news' roles. I just knew about the location, etc., other things, until they attached me to fake conversations with themselves. So there's a Roger Suzanne. And but then also people with Alina's Pizza have a Daryl Sullivan involved also with a Lance Cuddy, with one of the women teachers of the campuses. I believe it was a teacher, her capacity. But since she was a student, she was involved with people involved with sexual medical offenders of kids and other natures of organized crimes with them, involved with a former Mayor Gold and a Debbie Gold. And an intelligence families that lived near me in the past, as one's further involved with the principal upskirt nature with a Phil Colo and whiting forensics with a bunch of people, like a Joshua Julian. And the people at Harper Hospital with their patients and criminals at the same time, the doctors planting evidences with people tied to a Smith family and their roles with people from Afghanistan, people from Korea, people from, in other words, get them on paper, one name and sequence. Have them fear guy to pretend to know me with this kid. What's that kid's name too at Harper Hospital? Get them on paper. Get them on paper. Get them on paper.